Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to the SRA GTE-Radical Series, Round 3, held right here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway on the famous Charlotte Roval course. I'll be your commentator for this evening, Matthew Palmer. I'll be with Chan Wei Hun and a very special guest very shortly indeed. The weather, however, looks perfect for a great days of race worth of racing out there. Humidity quite high, but temperatures under control, and the wind really gusting there at 14 kilometers an hour. But it's looking to be a very, very special race this time round, around a very unique track indeed. Now, as we see Kevin Huang come into the final chicane to bump across there, let me just recap the previous round's results at the Circuit of the Americas last weekend. Timothy Jackson took it home for his first win of the season in that nice Monster Energy Porsche 911. Absolutely fantastic track, absolutely fantastic car, and a very, very brilliant drive. He had to really fend off a few hard charges right at the end of the race there. Ilham Plabi in his Ferrari was 0.3 of a second behind the Malaysian driver, almost catching up to the Australian, but not quite managing to do it right at the end of the race. Jasmine Jali took home third place in the Corvette CAR. So I believe we in fact do have Chan Wei Hun in the studio. We'll just give him a split second to get his mic hooked up, and we'll be ready to go. But it looks like Saifur Arfin's going quite quickly there. Timothy Jackson as well. Jasrin Jali. Michael Healy will be an interesting one to look out for. Atsushi Kanata. Kevin Huang and Simon Sanchez. Also a very, very good chance of winning the race. Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So that is going to be my co-commentator for this evening, Chan Wei Hun. How's your day been?
Wow, a bit tiring to say the least. I think I spent most of my time settling my schoolwork. So, the results will be out. The results, the championship standings, I will be working on it. The guys here at SimRacing will be working on it, and it will be out by the next broadcast. But I think we've had quite an exciting first two races. The first race was, to my memory, it was quite an exciting one. It was a very intense one. The second one at Circuit of the Americas, I think it was, it was kind of, it was a little bit more. I would say it's less intense, perhaps due to the fact that the track is, it is more down to the way you handle the car on the track, instead of fighting it out itself. But of course, we've come to this Charlotte Roval, and I think all of us on iRacing, we all know by now what kind of crazy circuit this track will bring, what kind of interesting moments this place will bring.
Absolutely. And the real challenge with this track is trying to set the cars up so that they're going to be relatively quick on the banked oval sections, because that makes up the majority of the lap in terms of distance, but the majority of the lap in terms of time is going to be taken up by the infield section. So it's a real balance as to where you try and bias your setup towards, whether you want to be quick on the oval or in the infield section. We've seen both work, and we saw with Simon Sanchez in the warm-up race we had earlier this weekend that two very different driving styles can end up being quite close near the end. Very exciting racing was had during the warm-up race there, and that really keys me into thinking that this is going to be a very interesting track to try and battle on.
Yep, certainly. So we've just come to begin our qualifying session. So if you do have a look at the lap times that the drivers have set during practice, of course the fastest driver was Saiful Arifin, but right now everyone's making their way out of the pits. I do see a glimpse of Ross Rizzo. He's of course one of our old old-time sim racers, Asian drivers. He was racing with us, a couple of years ago, and it was just great to see him racing with us again. This is Jayaswin Jali. He's part of Sima Garage Racing team. Now, of course, if the team names are yet to be updated, it's probably due to the fact that the registrations had come in after the due date, and if there are any discrepancies with the team names, it will be updated by the next round.
Indeed they will, but I do believe that Jajajali will be driving for Sima Garage. He is sponsored by Toda as well, so that is the reason why his wonderful C8 Corvette is painted in that rather fetching Toda Motorsports livery. But I do hear that both himself and Ilham Halabi were very quick at the last round.
Yeah, most certainly. Of course, I was able to catch a glimpse of the starting portions of the race, and I think the intensity of the racing wasn't exactly as crazy there as compared to the first round at Road Atlanta. At Road Atlanta, we had a lot of crazy moments, but of course, we're still racing in North America. We're still racing in the US, so of course, the tracks here, they have this kind of specific, unique flavor to it that so many other tracks in other places don't exactly have, and most tracks, kind of bring a certain kind of excitement to the table.
Indeed, and I believe it's a more philosophical way of designing. The philosophy of designing a racetrack is very different compared to that in Europe. Of course, the Americans see motorsports as first and foremost a medium of entertainment, which is why they went to that single chassis formula in IndyCar. They're a lot more open to that than, say, Formula One would ever be. And same with the tracks here, they're thinking of maximum drama and excitement. And this Charlotte Roval is almost a perfect example of that. NASCAR guys decided that they needed more road courses on the calendar to offset the almost, 32 or 33 ovals that they had, to add a couple of road courses, and they decided to change the Charlotte date using the club infield course, but they've changed it quite a bit there. That was who unfortunately had that incident then. You can tell that these guys are definitely trying very hard indeed. But in any case, it does go to show that if you really do design a track with maximum excitement in mind, it would look an awful lot like the Charlotte Roval.
Yeah, and in fact, this track layout, it was very, very calendar specifically. This was in fact more geared towards the NASCAR Cup cars. Cars that are usually we used to seeing them going fast around the ovals, but of course, these cars can handle crazy road courses as well with all the tall curbs and stuff like that. And of course, with all the walls so close together, I think it is still relatively fitting for these GT cars. Despite not being completely tin top, I think you would see sometimes rubbing the walls. So you see some cars rubbing the walls to make their way around. This I think is very much part of how you race on a track like this, a Roval track. Especially this exact one where you see Case BMW rubbing against the wall. Sometimes you can make use of that wall.
Indeed you can. And this isn't exactly a new thing. Of course, the Daytona 24-hour race has been going on since the late 50s or early 60s. And they've been Roval events all throughout North America for GT cars and even sports prototype cars as well. So not a very foreign thing actually to have these high-tech GT cars running around what at the surface seems to be a very low-tech venue. But it really does work quite well because these cars are first and foremost designed for the long straights of Le Mans and Spa. To see them really be hustled through these low to medium speed corners is a real treat for us, and it really just goes to show the driving skill required to take on the challenge of driving GTE cars around the high banks of any Roval course. But I do have to admit that apart from Daytona, which always has a particular fascination for me, being one of the Triple Crown of endurance racing, but the second best Roval course has to go to Charlotte Roval, and in terms of excitement, there's nothing more exciting than Charlotte.
Speaking of Rovals, it's also worth mentioning that I think somewhere along this calendar, this season itself, we will pay a visit to the Indy road course, the Grand Prix road course at Indianapolis, and No, I think although it's not exactly the classic Roval kind of racetracks that we would see here at Charlotte and Daytona, I think that's also where Formula One has even raced there, and that's kind of a little bit more geared towards a road style of a racetrack that we will see there. We raced there I think a couple of seasons ago, and even then we had some great moments. And right now we're just seeing some drivers kind of falling victim to the unique walls of this track. Some cars are just finding themselves in the wall, and cars are being parked all over.
Indeed. Just going to show how demanding the course is and how precision is everything on the Charlotte Roval. 6 minutes have passed, and so far Timothy Jackson is on a roll. You can see he's definitely picked up some momentum from that win last weekend. He is up there in first place. Michael Healy is in second. Ross Rizzo, who is, as you were saying, a returning driver coming back into the championship, he is in third place at the moment. Kalvinder Singh, look out for him in the M8 GTE car. Very quick driver there. He is in fourth place, followed by Saiful Arifin, Kevin Huang, Jezrin Jali, another quick driver there. Andy So, Simon Sanchez, again the winner of the warm-up race. Mitchell Hui, Jamal Gandor, Atsushi Kanata, Kake, Fred Ting, and Dominic Tan. Your top 15 so far in the qualifying session there. And it looks like the times are beginning to tumble down quite a bit. It looks like a 1:13 is going to be a very quick time around this track.
In fact, we are also seeing an Aussie provisional 1-2-3. It's something that we've not seen for a very, very long time. I think the last time we'd seen something like that was back in 2016 or 2017, where we kind of experienced a great participation from regions sprawling towards the Australian side of the globe. Now, of course, right now our participation has kind of become a little more diverse, with good participation with specific participation from various countries within this region, the Asia region in general, plus the Pacific as well. As I just said, that Saiful Arifin has come on to take a provisional pole. At this point, he has just set a 1:37.69, so that puts him up on top.
And you can see Timothy Jackson immediately react by heading back out onto the track there. That could be a nice little battle for the lead there, and that could be very entertaining indeed. And so we see Ryan Lam has gone out on track in the Corvette, the C6R, with a fantastic Valvoline livery. We were actually talking to Doyle in the chat section below, who created that livery, and he was egging obviously Ryan Lam along to try and get that win. Just fell a little bit short, had to battle his way through the midfield along the way, but if the warm-up race is anything to go by, Ryan Lam looks to be a very quick driver indeed.
So just looking at the variety of cars making their way around the track, this is Atsushi Kanata. Very, very nice to see him racing with us as well. He's got a provisional lap time of 1:15.612, so that is approximately 2 seconds behind the pole sitter, and as a matter of fact, way faster than my lap time here at Charlotte Roval. All of these guys are faster than I'll ever be. That's probably why I'm never on track at all. And very much so. This exact chicane that he's taking, this final chicane before the start finish, it's a tricky corner to get right, because the approach to this corner, it's a break. You're kind of braking whilst turning in, so it's quite difficult to kind of get your car square with the entry of the corner as you brake in. And also the fact that it is kind of like a gear 1 or gear 2 chicane, so drivers will have to exercise a lot of care as they exit the bank oval itself onto that approach. So it's now coming along the infield of this track, and of course, NASCAR being NASCAR, you can use a lot of the tarmac runoff that's being made available there. Even a lot of this inside tarmac that you can cut without any issues. It just makes racing here much more, a little more comfortable.
Indeed, the aprons around the infield section, they're really helping out the drivers quite a bit. And that's the nice thing about the American attitude to going racing. If the drivers want to use all of the apron in that infield section, the Bank of America infield section out of turns, is that 1, 2, 3, 4 especially, where you could get the entire car virtually off onto the apron. If the drivers want it and everyone agrees, they'll do it. Of course, there is, I believe, a bit of a rule with when it comes to the apron on the banking for reasons of safety. They're meant to keep off there as well. But further along to the point that Wei Hun was saying there, it's very critical to try and master just a little bit of trail braking to try and keep the car's nose in the corners around here, especially in these mid-engine cars, the Ferraris and the Audis and the Corvettes. It's really going to be, and the Fords as well. Let's not forget them. But it really is going to be critical to try and master that. You can see Sanchez coming on and off the brakes just to try and make sure he's got a bit of weight coming into the front of the car there. Now, of course, the other unique thing about Charlotte Roval is that there's a lot of elevation change in the infield section, almost more so than some of the natural terrain road courses that we'll be racing at in this championship. So it's going to be a real challenge. There's a lot of natural flavour to the infield section of the road course here. It really does feel like racing on two different circuits at the same time.
Yeah, very much so indeed, and of course that's going to also prove quite challenging for these drivers, because you're kind of on a track that's, to begin with, it's not exactly the kind of a level track that we're all used to. It's a bit, transitioning between one and another. And not just transitioning once, so you're transitioning every single lap. So you have to kind of get yourself into that frame of mind that you are kind of, you're entering one portal into some other universe of a track, and you're exiting that into the oval itself, and then you're going to transition to some tight corners across the backstretch.
Yes, and as the track begins to evolve, that transition is going to get different, which adds another layer of complexity to these drivers as they go around the track. Meanwhile, we'll have a quick look at the results right now. 12.5 minutes have gone in this 15-minute session. We'll immediately start the race right after this, but in the meanwhile, Saiful Arifin is still on provisional pole, but just barely. You can see there's only 1/100th of a second between Saiful Arifin and the second place man Ross Rizzo, who is on his outlap, about to take another attack at the race there. It's an open qualifying session, so they really do have one shot, and they have to be careful with the traffic around here as well. Kavinder Singh is in third place, a seemingly ginormous 1/10 behind Ross Rizzo. That just goes to show how tight it is in the top 5 there. So Saiful Arifin in pole position, Ross Rizzo in second, Kavinder Singh in third, with Timothy Jackson in fourth and Michael Healy in 5th place. So a real challenge brewing right up at the front of the field there. Quite a few cars in the 113s, which are going very, very close to a 113 with a 114.078, and Kevin Huang a further 10th behind. Joseph Jali is in 8th, followed by Simon Sanchez, Andy So, Ilham Glabi, who's just going on his outlap. Atsushi Kanata is in 12th place, Ryan Lam in 13th, followed by Mohaimin, Jamal Gandor, Vimal, Federico Texera, Dominic Fred Kake, and Mark Lang. There's 21 drivers who have been out on the track.
So of course, as we move towards the final moments of qualifying, so what I'm going to do afterwards during the start of the race is that I will also be looking out for some incidents, and we'll try to identify areas where there might be some incidents, which means that there would also be yellow flags being thrown if incidents do get in the way, just like we've had in race 1. Unfortunately, in race 2 we did not have big pileups. So as I'm doing that, we would appreciate, Max, if you're able to kind of cover my back for a little bit as I do that. Yeah,
no
but I think the idea is that when the yellow flag is being thrown out, it will allow drivers to kind of collect themselves and try to regroup as they try to emerge from an incident.
Indeed. So for those of you at home who are wondering, a little bit of TV magic there. We also have Chun Wei-hun in as a bit of a marshal as well, especially just off the start line, as many eyes as we could possibly get onto that starting grid, just to make sure everyone gets off nice and safe. So if you do wonder where he went for the first 2 or 3 laps of the race, well, there's your answer. But in any case, the qualifying session has indeed ended, and Saiful Arifin has indeed taken pole position by just. And having looked at that again, it's in fact less than, good grief, it's 2,000th of a second between Saiful Arifin and Ross Rizzo. That must be the closest qualifying the SRA series has seen in a very long time.
Oh yes, it's such a close margin indeed. 2/1000ths of a second separating the Malaysian and the Australian. So of course we do have within the top three. So we have Saiful Arifin, Ross Rizzo, and Kelvin Singh, who will begin from the provisional podium. And of course we've got all-time SimRacing Asia drivers, returning SimRacing Asia drivers, Timothy Jackson and Michael Healy, as well as one of our newer guys, Mitchell Hu, who is joining us in 6th position. Kevin Huang, of course, one of the guys behind SimRacing Asia since its inception also. He is in 7th. And we've also got the rest of the drivers, Jaiswin Jali, Simon Sanchez, and the rest of them.
Indeed, and it does seem to be that this year, despite all of the ails of the world, it does seem to be an absolutely golden year for sim racing, with some of the old hands coming out to try and teach the new guys new tricks, and some very, very promising rookies coming into the series as well. It looks to be a very exciting series shaping up to be. I can't wait to see what the race is going to be like. And now we're going to have a quick look at the grid. Saiful Arifin, again, he is in 1st position there, on pole position for Todak Motorsports, the 689 car. He is going to lead Ross Rizzo of Trick Sim Sports there. Like I said, less than 1/1000th of a second between, so 1/100th of a second between them. Kavita Singh is in 3rd place in that beautiful M8. Timothy Jackson, meanwhile, he will start the race in 4th. That's your previous round's winner. All 4 of these drivers will have a chance of winning the race. Michael Healy in 5th, followed by Mitchell Hui, Kelvin Huang, Jasmine Jali, Simon Sanchez, Andy So, Atsushi Kanata, Ilham Halabi there down in 12th place. Further down we have Ryan Lam, Muhammad Muhaimin, Jamal Gandoor, Vimal Ananda Raman in 16th place, Federico Texera in 17th, Dominic Tan in 18th, followed by Fred Thing, Kake, Mark Lange, Zane Farrell, and I believe that is the grid for the race. And now we're just waiting for a few more drivers to load up on the grid. A unique grid here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, inspired by Le Mans, and it's due to the unique run up to the first corner there. So the drivers do have to line up in that distinctive line on the side of the track. I do believe the NASCAR guys also do this as well. You can see a shot of them coming out from behind the grandstands. The Porsche 911 safety car will take them around on a pace lap before the start of the race, and we get to see for one last time before the racing starts this wonderful, wonderful circuit. Now coming into Tom's Heartburn turn, very aptly named turn, especially at the start of the race. This is where John Wei-Hun's going to have the most of the butterflies coming down through there. It's a very challenging start to the race because you have to get the car settled coming out of the chicane and coming across the tri-oval. Now turn 2 there, you have that imposing wall coming into the Bank of America Roval section. This is where the track really starts to feel a little bit like a Grand Prix circuit. Nice flowing medium speed corners there coming right out to the exit. You can use all of the tarmac and then some. Ilham Labi there in 10th place. He looks to be one of those drivers that does a lot better in terms of race pace than qualifying. You've seen that quite often from him, that he is able to fight his way up the field. Ross Rizzo there in that fantastic Ford GT, looking very menacing indeed in that Trick Sim Sports livery. Now coming onto the exit here, and this is where the track sort of gets its Jekyll and Hyde flavour in. It comes out of the road course section and on into the high banks of Charlotte Motor Speedway, 3 stories high, as the track promoters like to say, it really does feel a lot steeper in the car than it does look outside. It does seem to be a little bit more gradual from the outside, as opposed to what it really is like on the inside. And when you look at the pictures we're sending you right now, it seems hard to believe, but it really does look a lot steeper than it does on TV. Now coming across the back stretch here, this is where the drivers will be most nervous. Coming into the back chicane, the bus stop chicane, they'll have to be very careful in the braking zone coming up here. Now the nerves are rising, starting to worry about whether they have the cars in the right modes and right settings. Are the tyres up to temperature? When will... And the man who's going to be most nervous for sure is Saiful Arifin. When does he go? When does he leave? He has control of the grid. As soon as that Porsche 911 comes down, it's his job to try and pace the field, and it's up to him as to when we begin to really put the foot down and bring the pace right up. It looks like it's going to be a good bunching up of the field coming through here, nice and neat. It's really challenging to start a race from the chicane here, but it looks like Saiful Arifin is going to go for it, and it looks like he's got the jump on Ross Rizzo coming across the line and coming into the first corner there, and it looks like Saiful Arifin has a massive jump there in Charlotte Roval terms, coming through the second turn there. Ross is all over the back of Saiful Arifin there. Meanwhile, they've already gotten a nice lead on Kelvinder Singh. Both drivers starting very strong indeed, coming through the first part here. Diving down in through the dip and over the crest, coming up to the transition from road course into oval. Saiful Arifin is in the lead, followed by Ross Rizzo. Timothy Jackson has dropped back a little bit, but he's fighting with Kelvinder Singh for third place. They're going to be side by side coming through the bank there, and it looks like Kelvinder Singh has the edge on the inside of the bank there. Will he be able to make it stick coming into the bus stop chicane? Kelvinder tries to defend on the inside there. He tries to brake a little bit early, but it looks like Timothy Jackson had to straight line the chicane there just to try and avoid any incidents. And a nice bit of sportsmanship there. He gives the position back to Kelvinder Singh, but that could have been a very big accident. Well avoided, well spotted there by Timothy Jackson, but it has dropped him down quite a few places there. And Kelvinder Singh has just a moment to breathe before he's under attack from Michael Healy. Michael Healy, definitely one of the pre-race favourites here. Coming through the first corner there, Tom's heartburn turn, and into the Bank of America Roval section. Really pushing that car hard, but look at these two drivers. They've gone into the lead, and Ross Rizzo has taken the position from Saiful Arifin. So they were battling for the lead, and it looks like Ross Rizzo is able to push that 4GT past Saiful Arifin's BMW. Let's have another look at that in the instant replay. Coming down the back straight there, coming into the braking zone here for the bus stop chicane, and it looks like Ross just had that edge when it comes to braking car. He had the tyres just a little bit warmer, and he was just that few meters later on the brakes, just about managing to get himself through. Meanwhile, Jasraj Ali battling with Mitchell Hui there. It seems like this race is really starting to come alive.
Oh, it is indeed, and we've in fact had, surprisingly, in fact, a very clean start to this race. You know, we did lose Jamal Gandour during the start of the race, where I think he did a spin on his car and he found himself in the inside wall, and he had to tow his car, and he's now a lap down. But everyone else has managed to in fact make it through very clean. So, in my opinion, a contrast if you compare it against round 1 at Road Atlanta. So right now we're with Jasraj Jali. Look, come on. I mean, sometimes it does help to be more aware of, you know, how the things are. And this is a replay. We have a look at Saiful Arifin as he goes alongside. Oh, that was a very close shave with Ross Rizzo, who was almost squeezed into the wall. And I think, you know, with all these closed walls that surround this Charlotte circuit, it pays to be very careful making your way around here.
Indeed, and this is shaping up to be an absolutely fantastic battle. Lap times seem very equal between Ross Rizzo and Saiful Arifin. They're trading the lead of the race between them virtually every lap at this point there. Now the challenge is, it isn't a short race. It's 45 minutes long. Still considered a sprint race by some, especially in the GT community, but definitely long in terms of iRacing races. It's a little bit on the longer side when it comes to sprint racing and single driver racing, but it really goes to show that you have to treat it like a sprint nowadays, push all the way from start to finish. But the main question right now is, will Safarofin and Ross Rizzo be able to keep that pace up? And it looks like Safarofin is able to try and gap Ross just a little bit. Meanwhile, Kevin Huang battling still with Jezrin Jali, and he's also got Simon Sanchez behind him as well, so he's really got to drive with one eye on the car in front, one eye on the car at the back, and somehow try and find a third eye to try and drive the car with.
Yep, indeed. Kevin now giving a lot of, giving Jysrin quite a hard time as he chases Jysrin down here along the backstretch. So, I think you can kind of divide Charlotte into quite a few sectors. You do have two high-speed sections that are based around the banked corners, and of course, this chicane, as you exit the chicane, that wall is there. If you're not careful with your exit line, you can scrape the wall and it can ruin your car. So we're now having a look at Mitchell Hui, who's climbed up to 5th position. He began from 6th, he's now up in 5th, and he hopped over the curb very nicely there. With these GT cars, curbs, you can try your luck making your way over the curbs with these cars. So he needs a couple of cars, quite a train of cars in fact, down these series of corners, because Jysrin is going to give Hui a run for his money. And as you can see, coming upon this section of the circuit, this stretch of additional tarmac on the left is in fact the preferred racing line. Just American racing things. Using the excess tarmac as a racing line. I'm not too sure if Formula 1 you can do that. Of course, with Formula 1 tracks you have a lot of runoff, but you can't use them legally. And right now we did run on his roof camera, and you can just kind of see that with as you make your way through the bank corner, it's all about trying to gather quite as much as what I'd like to call gravitational potential energy as you're at the top of the bank itself. You kind of shoot your car down and use a bit of that gravity to push your car further. We're now with Simon Sanchez in his very nicely presented Singer beverage paint scheme. Very nice colors. I was about to say another word, but
for legal reasons, it's the Singer Group. So for those of you who are wondering, yes, Singer does produce a whole range of beverages, not just the one that they're famous for in terms of tourists in Thailand, but they're also a huge investment group, and I believe this livery is actually based on a real-life car, or at least I do remember seeing a Ferrari with this unique Singer livery. They've been massive supporters of motor racing. It's nice to see their livery out there on track, and so is the livery of Ryan Lamb, who's now battling with Ilham Hlabi, two very quick drivers who seem to be a little bit further back than you'd expect them to be in these types of cars there, but it looks like they're going to really be shaping up for a real hard battle. Ryan Lamb was desperately trying to catch up with Simon Sanchez when we ran the practice session earlier on in the week, and it looks like he has a relatively good race pace right now, just a couple of seconds off the qualifying pace, which you would expect, especially now with the level of traffic and the sort of concertina effect that you get around here. When the guy in front brakes just a little bit early, you have to brake just a hint earlier as well, and that could be very challenging for someone trying to carve their way up through the field. Meanwhile, Jezrin Jali is putting a lot of pressure on Mitchell Hui. This battle has been going on for 7 laps, so it'll be interesting to see whether Jezrin Jali can overtake Mitchell coming out of the road course section there. It looks like he could be very close indeed.
Don't forget that Jali himself is also coming under some pressure from Kevin Huang, who's he began from 7th, he's still in 7th, and I think he will be very keen on making a move on these drivers. So wow, very, very close indeed, and Kevin Huang is going to go dig inside the Corvette of what would probably be Jysrin, but of course he wasn't able to make that move stick. Jysrin still holds on to 6th position. And we've got Sanchez behind that, who's also trying to have a slice of his pie. So now they make their way around bus stop chicane. It's quite similar to the one at Daytona, but of course this one has walls, the one at Daytona doesn't. And they're now coming upon the final left bank corner as well. Now the difference between this and the one at Daytona is that there is this deceiving chicane. You know, you don't know when you're supposed to brake, and when you know when you're supposed to brake, it's too late, and you just find yourself sending your car into the wall. At least that kind of happened to me every time I took this track. So I never really bothered racing here, but very, very beautiful track nonetheless.
And now we have a look at Tennessee Jackson, who is right the way down the field. It must have been something that happened to him for him to be that far back. He did start, I believe, in 4th. He's dropped 8 positions so far in the race. He might have had a bit of an incident while we weren't looking. It looks like the front of his car is just slightly warped a little bit, but he is back up into the 114s right now, so hopefully he'll be able to be back up and running in race pace. But he's got a real fight back up ahead. As you can see there, he's joining on to the back of Ryan Lamb, who's chasing after the Ilham Halabi Andy So battle for 10th and 9th position up ahead. So this could be another 4-way race developing. The classic sim racing midfield battle there with Jasmine Jolly, Kevin Huang, Simon Sanchez and Andy So chasing them behind them. So this could be a very interesting race indeed, with everyone coalescing towards the 5th place man, actually the 6th place man of Jasmine Jolly. Meanwhile, it looks like Kelvinder Singh and Ross Rizzo has made an overtaking maneuver there. That's a big incident there from Ross Rizzo. That was very, very bad indeed. Just a bit of contact on the wall there, as we see in the replay, and that made Ross Rizzo sort of lose control of the car there. Very well held to just get on the brakes and keep the car in a straight line. That could have been a very big accident for all involved, but now Ross is down into 12th place. Yet another contender for the lead has gone, but now Michael Healy is putting a lot of pressure on Kelvinder Singh as well. This was a 3-way battle for 2nd place. It's now a 2-way battle for 2nd place, and it looks like Michael Healy, just by keeping his nose relatively clean throughout the opening section of the race, has managed to gain quite a few positions there. Meanwhile, Jasrin Jali very high up the leaderboard there. He's closing up to Mitchell Hui as well. This could see that sort of group battle come to the leaders.
So of course we do have positions being shuffled a little bit, as a result of that unfortunate incident. And Jaisrin has now found himself in 5th position, and he's still chasing down Mitchell Hui. Hui is in 4th, and he sits quite a margin behind 3rd place driver of Michael Healy, so he does need some time in order to close that gap out. But of course, Hui himself is trying to fend off whatever pressure that he's feeling on his shoulders at this point.
It looks like it might be another attempt for those guys to change position. Meanwhile, Ilham Halabi is still battling with Andy So in that all-black BMW M8. I believe Halabi also is in a Ferrari, so this could be very interesting. Two very, very different cars, but it just goes to show how well this series has been balanced. Very, very close to each other in terms of performance, but very different handling characteristics there. You can see Andy having to drive the car very differently from Ilham. He's had to take to the inside there just to make sure that Ilham has enough space to race. But coming up into the braking zone for the chicane there, it looks like Ilham very close behind. This could be a position change very, very shortly indeed. Let's see what happens when they come to the heartburn turn up ahead. Gap is coming down through the road section here. It'd be very interesting to see if Ilham can catch Andy So.
They have great progress, in fact. So Ilham has found himself 3 positions from where he began from earlier on in the race. He's still, he sits behind Andy So, and of course, you can also kind of observe, very, very minor differences between the way the BMW and the Ferrari handle on a track like this. So it is a slipstream time, as Ilham will of course be tempted to try to find the best slipstream as possible. So So does go defensive as he takes this short stretch before they break for the chicane. Good use of the curbs. You can see how much of the curbs these cars use. Going very close to that wall and making good use of the inside run off the painted tarmac along the inside. I think sometimes we would just like to do some burnouts so that you kind of get some black lines over those paint. Down onto the final chicane, braking not in a straight line but braking in a left turn is very, very difficult to do. And this is going to be Ilham. He's going to go along the inside alongside, so they go into Heartburn corner and Ilham cleans that move off. He moves up to 8th position and Andy So faces a little bit of no, it was Ilham facing a little bit of stuttering issues. And very, very fantastic move by Ilham. Oh, unfortunately, it goes a little bit wide, uses a bit of the grass as he took the exit of that corner.
Yeah, that was an absolutely entertaining maneuver there by both drivers. They're so close that I believe they touched, or at least they touched on my screen going into that first corner there. Absolutely entertaining stuff by both drivers. Of course, a little bit of contact is okay. Rubbing is, after all, racing. We are in America. That is to be expected there, but that battle looks like it's going to be going on for quite some time. Joshua Jolly, meanwhile, has another fight on his hands. He's been trying to get past Mitchell Hui for quite some time now. It's been a bit of a battle right now because he's pushing very hard indeed to try and get closer to that 4th place position. Now coming into the braking zone here, really closing up through the chicane there, and now coming up to the exit. And it looks like Mitchell's just a little bit quicker over the curbs compared to Joshua Jelly. It might be an interesting point to see whether the Ferrari is actually a little bit better suited to the curbs than the Corvette. You'd think it's the other way around, and traditionally the Corvette has always been very good at the curves, but this is of course the first ever mid-engine Corvette, so perhaps there's a few things that the American giant could learn from the light and nimble Ferraris. Meanwhile, Andy So still battling with Ilham Halabi. This battle looks like it's going to be going on for quite some time.
Oh, it is indeed. Of course, Mitchell has held his position very well over the past quarter, the first third of the race, and he's doing a stellar job. Also, a stellar job by Jais trying to put Hui a run for his money. These two are very, very fast drivers. And they're all putting up a great show for all of us. Well, I was kind of on my nerves there, on my toes, as these cars nearly swung into the wall. And we're now riding aboard Andy, so you just can't help but feel how close they are to the wall. And if they do kind of misjudge the exit of the corner, it could very well scrape out the walls. So of course, this is Andy, so he's coming upon the final chicane. He's kind of being sandwiched between Ilham Halabi and Timothy Jackson, so both of them making their way around the track as well. Andy, so he's coming under more pressure from the posture of Timothy Jackson while he tries to close his gap with Ilham. And of course, we would usually be used to seeing Ilham fighting at the sharp, the pointy end of the grid, but everywhere he is, he fights extremely hard as well, so it's very, very good to see that he's battling very well through the rest of the grid as well. The cars do kind of hit the cones a little bit as they go along the re-entry towards itself.
So 2 minutes have passed in this 45-minute race, and right now in the lead is Saiful Arifin. The Malaysian is in first place, followed by Kelvin Singh, a Malaysian 1-2 there. In third place is Michael Healy, followed by Mitchell Hui, further 4 seconds behind in 4th place, coming through the line there. Following that is Jaswin Jali, Kelvin Huang, Simon Sanchez, Ilham Halabi, Andy So, and Timothy Jackson. Your top 10 as the 17th minute of the race comes across, lap 15 of the race there. And it looks like throughout the field there's going to be quite a few battles going through there. Jaswin Jali and Mitchell Hui, they're still at it. There's still just about the same amount of gap between those two drivers. Meanwhile, let's have a quick look at the replay. Ilham Halabi coming into the chicane there, very hard on the brakes there. Let's see what happened to him there. Ooh, that's a big incident from Ilham Halabi. That's a very, very, very rare mistake from the veteran who's been racing on iRacing virtually since the start of the service. That's amazing to see. Could the man who likes to dole out pressure be the one that has succumbed to it coming into that chicane there? It looks like he took the curbs just a little bit too hard, sending him into the wall.
So this is him on the backstretch on the approach to the chicane. He sits behind Michel Hui, and we can just see him going over the curbs. Oh, right, we are with live pictures at this point. This is in fact Jai-Swing Charlie who we're looking at. Ilham does seem to have sustained a little bit of damage, so we will see if he will make his way back in the pits, which he would probably do. So yes, this is him down onto the apron, which means that he's most likely going to take the pit entry for his repairs. Of course, refueling is not needed for this session because there is no limit to the fuel amount that these cars can carry. But of course, some drivers will kind of run less than the maximum amount of fuel in order to get the optimum weight to kind of be able to push the car a little better around this track.
Indeed, Joshua Jelly still to that rather nerve-wracking sandwich. Mitchell Hui up ahead, Kevin Huang behind him, and that is the three mid-engine cars battling so far in the race there. This is a battle that started somewhere around 8th, 9th and 10th positions, and they sort of almost went up the field in unison there. Through the misfortune of some of the other drivers, of course, Ilham Labi had to drop out of the battle. Jaswin Jali neatly taking his place then, confusing pretty much all of us, because of course Jaswin Jali has the same livery on the car as Ilham Labi there. He actually confused me for a split second there as well. But in any case, Mitchell Hui there still soaking up the pressure quite well. But of course, Jaswin Jali is a very quick driver, and so is Kevin Huang. It'll be interesting to see if any of these drivers can do that. You can see him getting very close indeed. In fact, I can spot what I believe is a Noriaro sticker on the back of Mitchell Hui's car, which is a nice touch, I might have to add, for the very Japanese style livery that he has on the car there. But Jaswin really pushing very hard indeed. Could this be an opportunity for an overtaking mover coming onto the back stretch?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't see that now. In fact, we did have many Itasha cars on the grid over the past seasons, and I would probably think that Mitchell's car is one of them. I would imagine. So these are the cars fighting from 4th and beyond. Mitchell Hui still leads this pack, and I can just imagine how hard he's been trying to defend his position, and I think he's got a little desperate already. He's using more inside tarmac than before. You can just see that he's making his line even shorter through there. And of course, Jai-Swing follows suit, and so does Kevin Huang.
So just having a look at the chat section in there, Doyle Lawrence was the man who designed the livery on Ryan Lamb's car. Nice to see it updated and sort of a little bit prettier. This is obviously a later version of the livery there, so thanks Doyle, who by the way I believe is from Texas in America, so we have fans from all around the world. Do leave a like on the stream and share your comments around. If we have some time in the stream, we'll be able to have a quick look at them from time to time. It's nice to be able to just interact with the audience during the course of the race. That's the advantage of this kind of streaming. But in any case, Michael Healy now has caught right up to the back of Kelvinder Singh. This could be another battle brewing in the top half of the field there. Saifur Arifin, meanwhile, he's managed a 6.6 second gap to his fellow Malaysian Kelvinder Singh. Michael Healy pushing very hard, the Aussie in the Porsche, really very neat and tidy through there. He only chooses to take the second of the two sausage curbs there to try and get the Porsche turned around. Of course, it's a bit of a unique car to try and drive. They have made it mid-engine in the sort of the current spec LM GTE cars. And it's going to be very interesting to see if Michael Healy can catch up to them. It looks like he can. Kelvinder Singh's car, his pace is dropping down just a little bit there. Michael Healy, he's still lapping in the 114s, the low 114s in fact. And this could be a chance for Michael to try and get himself up, further up the podium run.
Oh, it looks like Kevin, one of the Ferraris has gone into the wall. An unfortunate incident there, and if we're able to have a look at what exactly happened that moment, it would appear that is the Ferrari, the Eurasia, Sim Sports Ferrari of Mark Lang, he found himself at a place that he says is the most comfortable at, which is the wall. I'm sorry. I mean, he likes to joke about me crashing, so here you go.
Well, when you're in this position, in this business, sometimes you're going to take advantage once in a while. One of the perks of the job there, but real pity there. Mark Lange was doing quite well, but that's just a really tough spot to try and get an overtaking maneuver happening. But that's Mitchell Hui. That was Mitchell Hui, who was, I believe, in 5th position there, and he spun coming into the braking zone there, and there's another damaged car going on. I believe that might have been Mark. And Mitchell Hui drops down in behind Andy So. So Jaswin Jali is still battling with Kevin Huang. Mitchell Hui unfortunately had a bit of an incident into the bus stop chicane there, and it just goes to show how punishing this track can be. And that's another incident there behind. That's Kevin Huang, who's made a small mistake there, went off in the same place as Mark Lange, and it's all happening around Jaswin Jali, but it looks like Jaswin's the last man standing. Meanwhile, Simon Sanchez manages to take advantage and gets past Kevin Huang, going side by side in the bank there, and he gets up into 5th place. So Jaswin Jali has managed to move up a place there, and it looks like everyone around him had all of their mistakes and all of their worst nightmares happen on the same lap. That's I've never seen that before.
What an unfortunate change of events, and I guess like what I've observed a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, in fact, very much at this time, there was this one race where, over a spate of a few seconds, suddenly a lot of cars started crashing. So I think it's very much, it's as though someone's pressed a button and everything's just gone wrong from there. So many cars have kind of found themselves in the wall or at places that they shouldn't be. But of course, what this means is that there's now some new competition between the different cars. So this is Ross Rizzo. He's found himself in 14th position with he's fighting with Ilham for 13th place, and he does so very nicely. Ilham hops over the curbs. Now, of course, we do offer the drivers an option for fast repairs so that drivers can get back up and running if they do find themselves in the wall. And so Ross Rizzo manages to close that move very comfortably. He's up into 13th.
Indeed, and Ilham Lobby didn't make it easy for Ross, trying to hold on to the inside line for as long as humanly possible before having to give it up after the Tums Heartburn turn there. But very good driving from these two drivers, giving themselves quite a lot of space in between each car, making sure that they're on the right position on the banking. And it really is a joy to watch two veterans of sim racing race against each other, because it really does feel like a dogfight, doesn't it?
Oh, it surely does. And also for you keen-eyed viewers out there, if you do notice that the sky in Sim has actually gotten a little dimmer, it's kind of a sunset-ish time right now. And why is that so? It's because the race organizers have decided to introduce a style of a race where the race begins in the daytime and it ends under the stars. So it will be the case for every race this season. It will end at night, especially for the last couple of laps. So of course that one is being masterminded by Mark Lang. So he's always probably got that secret weapon that he's going to deploy in his favor. So maybe later on, when the lights are off, the devil comes out.
Well, you never know. Meanwhile, Andy So, that fantastic overtaking maneuver on Kevin Huang. Yeah, that's right, Kevin Huang, who is really trying very hard indeed to try and get up to the leaderboard. But the battle between 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th is really woken up a little bit by the fact that Mitchell Hui and Kevin Huang had to drop back quite a bit there. And these guys are really chopping and changing positions quite a lot there. Timothy Jackson really throwing the car over the curbs there. He wants to try and climb back up into the 4th place that he held at the start of the race. And it looks like he is on the hunt for Andy So. Pushing the car through the Bank of America Roval section. As you can see, the lights beginning to dim. It's an absolutely epic way to finish the race around here. And of course you'll see the lights come on. We've got fireworks. We've got the whole production number lined up next. Michael Healy, meanwhile, he is in the Porsche. He's right up to the very back of Kelvinder Singh, and he's going to go into the braking zone up ahead. Will he be able to use the Porsche's brakes to get ahead? Yes, he can. And as a backmarker having to literally drive off the track to avoid the battle, it looks like Michael Healy has managed to get himself up into second place with Kelvinder Singh in third. Michael Healy's been released there. We know he's a very quick driver indeed. Kelvinder Singh is also a very quick driver, and in the 10 or 12 or so laps that Kelvinder has to try and catch Saiful Arifin, he's managed to drop that gap from 6.2 to 5.5 seconds. And now Michael Healy will have the job of trying to overhaul Saiful Arifin. It's going to be a very interesting end to the race if he can do it. Healy's lap times are very, very quick indeed, and having been released from the back of Kelvinder Singh, who had to take a lot of pressure to try and keep Michael Healy behind him. I think they were running line astern for about 5 or 6 laps there, and it looks like Michael Healy is able to get himself out into the lead, and look at the gap he's able to pull. He's already almost a second ahead of Kelvin right now, so it just goes to show how quick these guys are pushing, and how quick Michael Healy is right now on the track. He's definitely kept his car in one piece, he kept his tyres just right so that he can have this nice mid-race push.
So fantastic driving by Michael Healy, but of course our race leader is still Saiful Arifin, and he is a huge 5.5 seconds ahead of everybody else. And of course Michael Healy sits ahead of Kelvinder Singh, and there is some pressure going on. We'll go with the other driver. This is Timothy Jackson, very nicely presented Monster Energy livery on his car, and he's behind Andy. So we'll have a look at how well Andy is perhaps going to be able to defend his position. So these two drivers come hard along the entry of the final chicane. They go hard over the curves, over the start-finish line. It's going to be the hard-burn turn as we see as Timothy Jackson takes a very fast entry into the corner. He's going to go take the good line through here as well. And you know, I think he's just trying his best to put whatever pressure he can on Andy right in front of him, making good use of the excess tarmac there. You know, you can just kind of see the very nice sunset in the distance, which will, you know, right now you have the sun staring in the eyes of the driver, but in just a couple of moments it will be the night sky and the stars.
A beautiful end to the race there. Timothy Jackson in the black Porsche chases Andy So in the black BMW. These cars are actually going to look quite epic. They'll look almost like just floating headlamps out there in the darkness. Now coming into the braking zone here, it looks like Timothy has definitely got the upper hand in terms of pace, but Andy So is not making it easy. He's trying to get the car in a different position than Timothy to try and break some of that toe effect, some of that slipstream coming into the braking zones there. Andy So very wise, very, very skilled in defence. But Timothy Jackson has the speed. He really is very quick indeed. In fact, he has won the previous round held at Circuit of the Americas, so it could be said that he was a bit of a favourite coming into yet another American track here at Charlotte. But it is, of course, a very different style of track, and we're seeing the Porsches. They can be very quick, but perhaps the consistency is just a little bit lacking in comparison to, say, the BMWs or the Corvettes. But right now, Michael Healy right up there, Timothy Jackson right up there as well in 7th place, and it looks like it could be a 6th place if Timothy can really play his cards right. But so far, it's half a second between himself and Andy So, and there are a further 4 seconds from Simon Sanchez, who has managed to very quietly get himself up into 5th place. It's almost the Daniel Ricciardo strategy of not being noticed until he is right up there in 5th place. He must have gained quite a few positions because he was outside the top 10 at one point. But so far 32 minutes have passed, and Saiful Arifin is still in the lead of the race. He is being chased by Michael Healy, who's already dropped half a second on him in the last 3 laps there, and he is closing up quite a bit now. Michael can just about see him on the big long banks. If he cranes his neck just a little bit more, he is in 2nd place, 4.7 seconds. The gap is definitely going down. His last lap was 1:14. Kelvinder Singh is in 3rd place. He is still in touch with Michael Healy, although perhaps not in a position to try and counter-attack from that brilliant overtaking maneuver earlier. He is in 3rd position, so this is very interesting indeed, almost like a high-speed chess match. Will Michael Healy be able to catch Saiful Arifin before the end of the race, and more importantly, will he be able to get past?
So we're now going to have a look at another battle that is still, that's kind of been taking place over the past couple of laps. It is between Timothy Jackson and this. So this is still the battle for P6, and I think it's been brewing quite hard over quite some time already, in fact. And right now you can see the floodlights beginning to switch on, which would probably help the drivers a little more with visibility around the track. So as they make their way, these two drivers make their way into the infield section. Of course, the infield is also rather reasonably lit up. Perhaps we'll have a better understanding of that as the sun begins to set even more. So quite good battles that are taking place throughout the field. Of course, we do have a couple of retirees. Those are Kake, Vimal, as well as Jamal. These drivers have unfortunately retired, which leaves 19 cars running. And we have a look at the other Trick Sim Sports car of Ross Rizzo. I think he is having quite a good time right now. He did come into some incidents earlier on, but he's now keen on taking 12th place from Federico Teixeira.
Indeed, and it looks like Ross has dispatched of Ilham Halabi, who they were battling with for quite a number of laps right now, and it looks like Federico Teixeira, the Macau driver, the Macanese driver, if my idioms are correct, or my nationalities are correct there. But in any case, the Aussie Ross Rizzo's trying to get past Federico. He comes onto the inside. They're going to go side by side down the back stretch. It's going to be an outbreaking battle coming into the bus stop chicane, and Ross Rizzo manages to make it through. Big hop there for Federico Teixeira to try and get himself around the corner there, but he manages to keep the car in a straight line there. Meanwhile, he has got a battler behind him in Ilham Halabi, who's caught up thanks to that overtaking maneuver. Remember, when you're trying to overtake someone, you do tend to lose just a little bit of speed. So that has put Federico Teixeira right into the clutches of Ilham Halabi, and this could be a very interesting battle indeed. Federico desperate to try and keep ahead of his qualifying position there. He's gained 4 places since the start of the race. Ilham Halabi is desperate to try and get back up to the sharp end of the field. He's had a bit of an incident earlier on. There we go in the Toyota Motorsports Ferrari. And it doesn't help when both the Toyota Motorsports sponsored cars are mid-engine cars as well. That really did confuse me for a bit. In any case, earlier on in the race, which was quite amusing. But in any case, Ilham Halabi really pushing very hard indeed. Could this be an overtaking maneuver there? A carbon copy attempt, very similar to the Ross Rizzo overtake coming into the braking zone here. Yet another battle of the brakes into the bus stop chicane, and yet another place gone from Federico Teixeira there. Meanwhile, just at the other half of the track there, we can see Federico. That's where he lost all the time. That caused him to be overtaken by quite a few drivers there. So that was the reason why he had to fall back and eventually end up in the clutches of Ross and Ilham.
So we're just scrubbing around for some more battles that are taking place. This is still Timothy Jackson. We're now riding on board his car, having a good view of things from his perspective. He is on a Porsche. He's hunting down a BMW, so he tries to go for a line along the outside. Of course, it's not going to be easy to make your move work, especially along on the lead up to a bus stop chicane. Now he continues that drive down the left-hand banking, and he's going on another top speed run, but of course he's got a little bit of a distance behind Andy. So now they come upon the final chicane, and good use of the curbs does Andy so, but Timothy does not exactly use as much of it. Down into hard burn turn, I think from his car you could see that the floodlights have begun to light up for all the visibility that you can get. We do have approximately 7 minutes to go in this race, so you can expect that the track will become dimmer over the next few minutes.
Indeed, and as of lap 31 coming into lap 32, Saiful Arifin is in the lead, but Michael Healy is catching him hand over fist. The gap, remember, was 4.7 seconds, it's now 3.2. Like I say, the two questions is, can Michael Healy catch Saiful Arifin, and more importantly, can he get past? Meanwhile, Kalvinder Singh is in third place, but he is in a real spot of bother there. Meanwhile, Timothy Jackson is trying everything he can to get past Andy So. Around the outside there, side by side, and it looks like Andy So has the upper hand coming around the corner there, around the bank. And it looks like Timothy Jackson just has to give him that position, but it's not over yet, coming into the braking zone for the final chicane, and it looks like Andy So has managed to hold off yet another attack from Timothy Jackson.
It's brilliant driving by both drivers as they go upon the entry into the infield section. Once again, this is where things are going to be a little bit spiced up. So Jackson tried to go along the inside of the BMW of Andy, so he tried to make that move work. And this is him. Is this going to be an overtaking move? This is defensive driving right here. Both drivers weaving against each other, trying to find a way past. So we are still with Timothy. He's still sitting in 7th, and he's probably going to be able to... Oh, it goes a little bit wide there, nearly coming into contact with the wall. So right now he's got a little bit of a better racing line, so he's probably able to make something work. A back marker in front, he breezes his way through there very nicely. So they are now very, very close to each other. Timothy Jackson tries to make that work, but you know, I did observe that, you know, on this track you don't exactly have a long enough section for you to be able to commit to a full overtaking move. Usually it's a matter of, you know, you're getting very close to making your passing maneuver, only for a corner to come up, and you kind of have to push that to later on.
Indeed, that seems to be the case, and might I just have to add, the track looks absolutely beautiful at night, doesn't it? You really do have that sort of Monday night football atmosphere that NASCAR racing at night does so well, but it's a nice touch to have the car. Oh, Timothy Jackson goes a bit wide there. He tried to keep as close as he can to Andy So, and that has really put a dampener on Timothy's chances of trying to get past Andy, and it's going to put him in the clutches of Mitchell Hui and Kevin Huang further behind there. If he's not careful, he's really going to have to push that car very hard indeed in order to try catch back up to Andy So, but we know he has the pace.
Oh, indeed, so this has unfortunately undone some of the progress that Timothy Jackson had made. Because we do have a look at Kevin Huang and very, very nice, you know, lights. The lights under the flying buttresses of that Ford GTE. These, you know, it does kind of add a special effect to the nighttime racing that you see these cars going around. Lights are up on all the cars already. I think on some of the GTE cars you will also have those colored identification LEDs that, you know, that you will be able to see.
Indeed, a real light show coming on throughout the course of the track. That's Kevin Huang there. He's tried to run away as much as he can from Ryan Lau, who's caught right up to the Ford. It's going to be a Ford versus GM battle, and rather fitting battle to have at this track where we've seen plenty of Chevy versus Ford battles over the years, both on the high banks as well as now in the infield section as well. That could be a very interesting battle indeed. And perhaps Chevrolet might have to copy the Ford GT's special lighting effects, because I do have to say Kevin's car looks beautiful. Now coming onto the banking there, you can see the banking section is well lit up, is lit up enough so that NASCAR drivers can see their way around the track without the use of headlights. But of course the nice part about this track is that the infield section is just a little bit darker, so it really does make you feel like you're in an endurance race when you go through the infield section at night. It really does feel like a night race for these GT cars indeed. Timothy Jackson right now, he's still trying to get past Andy So. This could be the battle of the race. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, these guys have been at it for over half the race, almost 20 laps of this battle so far, and Timothy has had a couple of chances. He's had a couple of setbacks there, including in the infield section here. He's going to go very close to the wall there. He's trying every single line possible around Andy, so this is going to be an absolutely mega end to the race for these two drivers. Let's see if Timothy can get past Andy So.
So of course, it's just a matter of, with all the short stretches that Timothy Jackson does find himself in, he's kind of like almost getting there, almost going to make a move, and that is, I am looking in fact at another screen. It would appear that Mitchell Hui has spun around and in front of Kevin Huang, and this is the incident. So you see them making their way towards the exit of the infield, and it was a matter of Mitchell Hui hitting the outside wall, and that unsettled his car, and he just went around and he allowed a couple of cars past. So unfortunate night for Mitchell Hui. He's now in 10th position, and Kevin Huang has moved to 8th position.
And I have to feel for Kevin Huang there, who had to almost stop the car and almost crash himself just to try and avoid Mitchell Hui's spin there. I wouldn't want to be in that cockpit, trust me, that is very close indeed. A mere half a foot between those two cars there. And, well, I can feel it there. Meanwhile, Atsushi Kanata is battling with Ilham Halabi up ahead there. It looks like Atsushi is getting closer and closer to the car up ahead. Doesn't help that Ilham Halabi has a little bit of a medical issue there coming across the start finish straight. He's been having a few problems in his area up there in Malaysia with the internet connection. It does happen on very rare occasions here, and but he's managed to keep himself in the race, and he's done very well for himself considering he was way back, and he in fact had to go into the pits for a repair to his car. But it looks like Atsushi just not quite having the pace of the car. Perhaps the tyres are beginning to give up the big BMW M8. They can be a little hard on the tyres sometimes if you overdrive them. So Atsushi Kanata, he was getting close to Ilham Halabi, but unfortunately he's had to pull back ever so slightly.
We're now having a look at another replay. So this was perhaps another incident that did unfold earlier on in the race. Oh, it was an overtake. So it was Kevin Huang making the overtaking move on another car, and Kevin Huang now finds himself in 7th position, exactly where he began from. We're now back with Atsushi Kanata, and he's making his way down the final chicane. Of course, a curved braking zone there, very difficult to get right, but essential that you get it right every corner. Got more smoke here during the race. Now, every time we see smoke, it's probably a sign that something wayward has happened. Of course, from the steward's standpoint, it's never a nice thing to see, but from the viewer's standpoint, it's always something interesting.
And that is the end of the race there. We just about missed the white flag signal because the time ran out right on the spot there for Saiful Arifin, who's come across the line. 2.8 seconds was the gap between himself and Michael Healy in 2nd place. Kalvinder Singh has come across the line in 3rd place, with Jez Rijali in 4th and Simon Sanchez in 5th. But Saiful Arifin manages to bring it home. Andy So has managed to withstand an incredible amount of pressure to come home in 6th place. Timothy Jackson, in the end, it looks like he had a bit of a mistake and had to let a few cars come past, but a valiant effort to try and get past there. And there's some damage on his car as well, so he must have been in a bit of an accident there, so that's very sad of him. Ross Rizzo was right up the front there. Unfortunately, he had to fall back a little bit, but he does keep that Ford GT in the top 10. Ilham Halabi not quite able to keep the car in the top 10. He comes in 11th.
So we do see the cars making their way around this Charlotte Roval under the stars. Always very beautiful to see this. So of course, as we do await drivers who are going to come on for the post-race interview, I think this is a very familiar sight for all of us who do race ovals on iRacing. This is how Charlotte is at night, and sometimes it's very much bunched up by NASCARs, those stock cars. But especially tonight, we do have GT3s racing around here. So if we go to the results, this is Saiful Arifin. He takes the race win here at Charlotte Roval, round 3 of the SimRacers Asia GTE-Radical series. Michael Healy and Kalvinder Singh come home in 2nd and 3rd. Jais Rinjali, Simon Sanchez come home in 4th and 5th. Andy So comes home in 6th. Kevin Huang, Ryan Lam, Timothy Jackson, and Ross Rizzo round out your top 10 race finishers. And we've also got Ilham Halabi. Unfortunate that is kind of not being able to make it to the pointy end of the field. He comes home in 11th. We've got Atsushi Kanata in 12th, Federico Teixeira in 13th, Mitchell Wee in 14th, Zane Farrell in 15th, Dominic Tan in 16th, Muhammad Muhaimin comes home in 17th, Mark Lang in 18th, and the rest of the drivers had in fact retired sometime during the race.
Absolutely, and it's been an absolutely entertaining race so far. Saiful Arifin, it must be said, he dominated right after the opening battle with Ford GT of Ross Rizzo there, and he did a very good job in trying to keep that car up the front of the field there. Virtually a lights to flag victory. He has in fact won from pole position, which, trust me, in these GTE cars is a very rare thing indeed. We see in the glorious sunshine earlier on in the race, Saiful Arifin has in fact won there for Todat Motorsports in that beautiful BMW M8 car, and you can see his challenger there, Ross Rizzo, who really put up a valiant fight at the early points of the race. And you can see that Kavinder Singh, who did a very good job in staying at the front of the field. Not the easiest thing to do, as it turns out. Timothy Jackson found that out the hard way. He had to fight from the back of the field after running at the front for quite a bit as well. And it must be said, this has been an absolutely interesting, fascinating and exciting race all throughout the field. But beautiful, beautiful stuff indeed. And racing under the lights here, it's such a special feeling. There really is not much else to say.
Absolutely. So we're just having a look at some beautiful shots of where the sun is at the right angle. You've always got these beautiful shots. These are pictures from our broadcast director Khairul Alang's stream machine. Very, very nice pictures. You can't get these in real life, but of course in simulators it's just something really nice. You can just see these DOF shots. Very, very nice. So we are still looking out for on the lookout for some drivers who might be keen on post-race interviews. It's still open. If you're around, feel free to come hop on. But of course, we will only remain open for the next minute or so. After that, we will proceed on towards the closing of this broadcast.
So whilst we wait for some of the drivers to come on board, some of the other notable things is that fantastic battle between Andy So and Timothy Jackson, which we've been commenting on with quite a bit of aplomb there. Unfortunately, Timothy Jackson had to wither a little bit in the final part of the race in the last laps there. There was a bit of a mistake, which unfortunately we didn't catch on our cameras. We'll try and see if we can get a clip of that later on, but that was a fantastic battle, over 20 laps long. And trust me, if Timothy Jackson can find a way to get past Andy So, he would have found a way. He tried the left-hand side, he tried around the outside, he tried around the inside, he tried to almost go through Andy So a couple of times there, and it really was quite the race. Unfortunately, one of the drivers there that didn't quite make it at the start, Jamal Gandor of Lebanon, who unfortunately had that mistake at the start of the race, ran into the wall and had to come into the pits for quite a bit of repair. But I'm sure we'll see him out and stronger than ever for the next race.
Absolutely. So of course, if we do have a look at the race calendar, next week we go to Interlagos. It's going to take place, of course, behind closed doors. But of course, it's still going to be an exciting race nonetheless. It's very much a classic iRacing circuit. Very, very intense racing that will take place at Interlagos. Something special about that track is that, it's kind of at such a high elevation that, you have to run high maximum downforce on those cars in order to get the most downforce you can get, just because the air pressure is kind of thinner at 4,000 feet above sea level. And because a lot of the corners are in fact a little bit off camber, you have to be very careful with your braking and your entry into those corners. The rest of the calendar, the next time we'll go live will be at Laguna Seca. This is another of the free iRacing content tracks. Fantastic racing also. It'll be very nice to see GTE cars taking on that track will of course put on a good show for all of us. Montreal on 7th November. That is going to be a street circuit. I think we've not really raced there in quite some time. It will be excellent if we go back there and experience GT racing on a unique track known as Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. After that, the one and only Circuit de la Sarthe, the Le Mans circuit itself on 14th November. Now that's where we will have a lot of high-speed action, slipstream racing, and of course at the home of endurance racing. 21st November, the finale will be behind closed doors. It will be Indianapolis, a road course that we are going to. Of course, that's the home. That's the that place needs no introduction. So you've got two of the Triple Crown racetracks back to back.
Yes, it's going to be an absolutely exciting calendar for the rest of the season there. Each round of the championship from now on is going to be on an absolute classic track, from the smooth flowing lines around Interlagos to the absolute non-stop action that's going to be Laguna Seca. That's going to be a fun one for us to commentate on. I'm definitely looking forward to that one. Montreal is going to be one of those tracks where precision is absolutely going to be key, and what can you say about the last two rounds? Le Mans and Indianapolis, two classics that are well worth the wait for these drivers. And yeah, it's looking to be shaping up to be a very exciting season as well. So select rounds of the SRE GTE-Radical series are going to be broadcast live on Adrenaline Impact, so do stay tuned to Adrenaline Impact for more information as and when the broadcasts are going to be on. We do have quite a bit more sim racing content throughout, so do stay tuned. Subscribe to Adrenaline Impact on YouTube and follow the Adrenaline Impact Facebook page, and also do show some of the races out here a little bit of love as well. Some of them have been streaming their races, so if you want to catch some of the GTE races that we aren't broadcasting this season, do try and look out for some of the drivers there. Kulvinder Singh will be streaming for sure. Saiful Arifin will be streaming, as well as quite a few of the other drivers. So do stay tuned to that. That will be very interesting stuff indeed.
Because we've had for ourselves an amazing Saturday night of racing, and of course, I do also understand that on Sunday nights, Adrenaline Impact will put up a GT3 race events as well. So myself, I'm very much looking forward to those. I think it's great that we're having more and more races based in this Asia region. It's just going to be to all of our benefit. This is it, the Adrenaline Impact GT3 series that will take place. The race itself will take place tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Malaysia time onwards. Yes, it's tomorrow, 18th October. It will be at Zandvoort, a track that I'm unfortunately not familiar with because I had only bought this track this year, despite being on iRacing for some time. It's one of those tracks that I just tell myself, should I buy it or should I save it for later? And a word from the broadcast director is also open to drivers from the SRA League as well. So everyone from SimRacing Asia and SimRacing enthusiasts are welcome to race with the Adrenaline Impact guys. GT3 cars, just as exciting racing. Of course, the only difference is that the GT3 cars are just a little bit nicer to get a hold of. With the way that those cars handle the style of racing is just that bit more pleasant and approachable. Personally, I enjoy GTE racing, but GT3s are also just as exciting.
Absolutely, and it's a fantastic place to start if you are interested in getting into this kind of endurance racing. I always recommend to try the GT3 cars first because they are just a little bit more forgiving in some respects, and it does teach you quite a lot about what these cars are about. Amazing performances and fantastic aerodynamics for the GT3 cars. It really does set you up and prepares you for the GTE cars or the LMP2 cars even quite well indeed. So if you're quick in a GT3 car, you could be very quick indeed in this car as well. But for now, it looks like our time is just about going to be up there. A special thanks to the Macau-China Sim Racing Association, as well as the Sim Racing Association of Singapore and Also, big thanks to the SimRacers Asia community, as well as the few SRE drivers, sim racing enthusiasts of Malaysia as well, competing in the race. Saiforifin bags one of the bags a win for those guys as well. They'll be very happy indeed, I'm sure. Also, a special thanks to Carol Alang, our broadcast director, for giving us these glorious shots and doing a fantastic job over the course of the race as well. And a very special thanks to Chan Wei Han for the carry throughout the broadcast there. It was fantastic work.
Thank you so much, Max. Of course, special thanks to Max and Cairo, for doing these broadcasts for the guys over at Sim Races Asia. We really appreciate all the work that Adrenaline Impact is putting out for all of us to enjoy.
Absolutely. And of course, a special thanks as well to the most important part of the equation, which is you guys, the fans out there. It's been amazing to see the comments down below. I do apologize that we haven't been able to get through the comments as quickly. I will try and get that chat box up a little bit more often tomorrow evening, so we can have a chat with our fans who are from all over the world. We had Doyle there from Texas, we had some guys from the UK as well, from across Europe, as well as, of course, all of the fans of these drivers in Asia. You guys rock, and hopefully we'll see you guys very shortly. But from now, that's it from Karo Alang, Chan Wei Han, and myself, Max Palmer. We will see you all in the next broadcast. Ta-ra!